Welcome to Blender Cinematic. This is part 1 of the tutorial series, Cinematic Desert Scene in Blender. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how to rig an helicopter using Helico-Rig Pro from Blender Market. Let's delete the default cube and let's hide the light and the camera. Let's go to the transportation add-on and look for an helicopter. This is a great add-on with many assets, and the assets are very detailed with good textures. You can also find a few free assets from the Blender Kit add-on. And then I'm going to make this helicopter editable for animation. And then I have all the objects. And the most important objects are the propeller 1, the main propeller, propeller 2, which is at the tail end of the helicopter, and then the main base of the helicopter. Let me delete the rig, which was auto-generated. Now let me just select each individual meshes and then join them together for our purpose. So the goal is to have 3 main meshes. So let's make this the main propeller. And let me speed up this process. So we have the main propeller, which is propeller 1. Now let's work on propeller 2, which is at the tail end of the helicopter. And that seems to be a separate object by itself, which is a good thing. Now let's move on to the body of the helicopter. Let's join all the rest of the parts to the main base of the helicopter. And let me speed this process as well. Alright, so we have all the rest of the parts joined to the main body. So we have 3 basic meshes: the landing gear, the main rotor, and the rear rotor. So let's bring in the Helico-Rig Pro. This is a beautiful Blender add-on available on Blender Market by 3D Vision. So let's go to the location where we have our add-on. And then inside the blend file, we'll go to the collection named Helico-Rig Pro and then add append. So that adds an helicopter rig to our helicopter. That's the trajectory. Let me just hide it for now. And then these are the basic shapes. Let me delete. So we are left with our helicopter and the rig. So we have 3 main widgets: the main widget, the propeller 1 widget, and the propeller 2 widget. So let's align each of these widgets to the respective meshes. Let's work on the propeller 1. Now let's align this to the main rotor. Alright. Now let's select the propeller 1 mesh, and then let's select the propeller 1 widget, and then press Ctrl P and then parent it to the bone. Now when we rotate the propeller 1 widget, the actual propeller rotates. Now let's work on the rear propeller. And let me get the cursor to the selected object, and then let me select the propeller 2 and then set origin as origin to 3D cursor, and then select origin and then select geometry to origin. So that gets our propeller 2 rig widget to the location of the propeller mesh, and then repeat the same process of parenting the mesh to the propeller 2 bone. And there we go. And then now let's take the base mesh or the landing gear and then repeat the same process. So we have the 3 main meshes parented to the 3 widgets of the Helico-Rig Pro. Let's go to Item, and under Properties, we see all the properties to animate this rig. And in order for this to work, let me start the animation. Let me get the end frame to something large so that the animation keeps going while we work on the properties. Let's first get the helicopter. The propellers of the helicopter to rotate. So that's propeller 1, and as we increase the value, the rotation speed increases. And I'm running at 24 frames a second, and for better visualization you can always increase the frame rate, but since I want to keep most of my animation cinematic, I prefer to go with 24 frames a second. And then let's do the same thing for propeller 2. And you can experiment with these values. So we have the 2 rotors rotating, and then let's increase the turbulence, location and rotation just by a little bit so that we get that helicopter animation. Try and keep this number a bit low so that there is less turbulence. We want natural movement, subtle but not too much. And then in the takeoff tab, as we increase the value, the helicopter takes off. And the rig rotation, the entire helicopter, which is attached to the main widget, rotates on the axis. We can use this to simulate the look of the helicopter. If it's moving forward, we can rotate it on the y-axis. If it's taking a turn, if it's banking, we can use x-axis rotation. And if it's just making a simple turn, we can use the z-axis rotation. Let's bring in the trajectory curve. So this is similar to what we do with the car animation. We're just creating a path for the helicopter to follow. So we can edit this trajectory by pressing G or E for more extrusion, and then create a path. I'm just creating a basic path here, just to share the concept. Alright, that's the basic trajectory. Now let's bring in the properties of the main widget. Each widget has its own properties, but we're going to work on the main widget. So let's set the speed to 1000. That is the resolution of the speed. And then when we increase the fly value, the helicopter moves on the trajectory. And I've observed that the fly value varies between 0 and a 10. So now let's get back to the timeline, and then let's work between frame 1 and frame 240, so which is 10 seconds of animation. And at frame 1, we're going to insert a keyframe at fly value of 0, and at frame 240, we're going to insert fly value of 10 and a keyframe. So the helicopter moves between 0 and 10. But the basic movement is not how an helicopter actually flies. So we need to insert keyframes for other variables as well, such as takeoff and rig rotation. So let's insert a keyframe at frame 24 for takeoff, and then another keyframe at 48 at an increased height. All right. That looks okay. Now let's work on the rig rotation. So as the helicopter moves forward, the helicopter rotates forward to provide the necessary thrust. So let's rotate the main rig by -20 degrees on the y-axis, and then insert a keyframe. We got to insert a keyframe. I think I forgot to insert a keyframe. At 48, -20 on the Y, and then press I while the mouse is over the tab. There we go. So when we play the animation, it lifts off and then also rotates on the Y at the same time. Now while it's taking a right turn, the helicopter should bank to the right. So that is achieved by the x-axis helico-rig rotation. And then let's repeat the process to keyframe the values between frame 48 and frame 72 between 0 and 20 degrees. There we go. So we're getting closer to a realistic helicopter animation. So this is the basic animation and how to rig an helicopter using Helico-Rig Pro. So there's a nice custom camera provided with this rig, and we'll discuss that in the upcoming videos.
Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video, and if you do, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Blender Cinematic. In the next part, I will be discussing how to create a desert in Blender. Stay tuned, and till next time, thank you.